Hey everyone, how's it going? You're watching Koki Lumpur, and in today's video we'll be talking about full-time trading as a career. So this is going to be an interesting video because it is a sequel to two previous videos that I've done, the first of which talked about how people are all about going for the mainstream advice. There is no full-time trader that is profitable. You can't do that as your full-time job because they're very rare. They're very, very rare to the point where whoever does it is probably a scammer who's trying to sell you a course. You can't do full-time trading because no one else does it. You only can become an employee. That is how you make your income. And if you want more income from that, you should buy and hold. People already have negative perceptions about real estate agents, but full-time trading probably has an even worse perception than being a real estate agent because there is a lot of people who don't believe that it is possible at all. And the second video, which is more like a series of videos that I've done in the past about leaving the life of an employee and starting your own business, is that full-time stock trading is its own business. You don't have to start a store or go out and rent an office and start hiring people for you to be a business owner. Technically, trading is also a form of running a full-time business, just that you don't have to deal with the bullshit that comes with a more traditional business, which is finding a place to rent, having to pay rent, having to hire people, maintain a payroll, having to buy all the equipment, having to go for a bunch of licensing and get stuff done from a bureaucratic perspective. None of that shit is required if you're just trading from your underpants from home, which is something that's appealing to me, and that is the path that I've pursued and started learning starting early this year. I've mentioned this in a previous video that I am a cheap fuck, so the fact that I just have to shove a bunch of capital to opening a trading account and starting to trade with that is appealing to me. And a lot of people will say, well, that's going to cost you a lot of money, isn't it? Well, so is starting your own business. I like the fact that I don't have to buy a whole bunch of equipment, go out there and rent a place, start hiring people, and then I still have to spend the time getting that business off the ground and up and running, right? So it's the same thing with trading. It's just that you don't have to have all of that. You still have the runway that's required to get off the ground, which is something I'll talk about in another video. It ain't that easy. I've spent half a year at this and I'm still not yet profitable. But that brings us to the point of this video, because people will tell you things, and I've heard those things before myself. Well, trading is a way to lose money because no one trades full-time. You see, you're not profitable, so you're the very example of exactly the kind of person that I'm talking about here. No one makes money. If you want to make money, you go get a higher paying job. You go apply to become a high level person. Are you qualified to become a high level person in a company? Why don't you go do that instead of wasting all your time and money trying to trade full time? That's a dream that you will never accomplish because no one else has. So becoming a profitable trader, is a challenge in and of itself, but so is everything. You spent 4 years in college getting your degree just to go out there and get a job that pays you 36 to 50K a year, didn't you? Why is it different from full-time trading? Why should I have the right to hop in without any knowledge whatsoever and start making a shitload of money right off the bat? There is a learning process, which I will confess is present, because that's present for everything, including starting your own business, right? So there's no easy path in life, and if there is, everyone would be taking it and it wouldn't be so easy anymore. And that is what people don't understand. And today I wanted to clear some things up about full-time trading, which I will split into the first part, which we've already kind of launched into. And in the second section of this video, I'll be talking about two examples that I know firsthand, personally, who have made it in full-time trading, and those people are living very comfortable lives, including with families and all. So the problem with a lot of people is that they think full-time trading, whether it's a stock market, whether it's forex, whether it's crypto, it's gambling. You are just throwing your money into the stock market in hopes that the price will go up and that's how you make money, but there is no consistency in how you get that money in the first place. Well, if you actually took a moment out of your day instead of scrolling on your goddamn phone all the time and look at Facebook and TikTok, right? You would be able to understand that there is a method to the madness over here. There are methodologies that people use in order to kind of control the amount of risk that they take going into a play, right? So there are indicators, there are technical fundamental analysis, whatever it is. We'll probably discuss this in another video, but there are things that you can look at that you can use to reduce that risk to the minimal amount possible. So there is always going to be risk, right? And that's another thing that people will say, well, even if it isn't gambling, it still is because you're taking risks. You're risking your money and putting that at line, and that means it's still gambling. Well, isn't that the case for everything else in life? Whether that's starting a business, going out on dates, finding a new job. You're spending all of that time and money and effort, swiping and swiping and swiping on your Tinder. And what happens after that? You try to ask someone out. You ask someone out, they go out on a date with you. You go out on a first date, well, they may just reject you after the first date and you just wasted your time and money. Or maybe they accept you on the second date, and then after the second date, they say, oh, we're just not a good fit because we're too different. And then bam, you've lost all your time and money again. Same thing with applying for a new job. When you are looking to hop from one employer to another, aren't you spending all that time applying for new jobs, looking at new job listings to begin with, and then applying for those jobs? And then when you apply for those jobs, how many rejections do you get compared to the number of interviews? Isn't that time wasted? Time is money after all. So you're technically wasting money as well, because you could be doing something else with that time that actually makes you money. Is that not risk? And then you get invited to interviews, which you gladly attend. Sometimes they're online, which is great, because the most you have to lose is that 1 hour that it takes to speak with the person who is either HR or the hiring manager, or sometimes you even have to go down to their office. And most cases, if you live in a place with close to no real employee protection or rights for the people, such as Malaysia, Singapore, you have to pay for your own gas to get to wherever it is to interview. And after that interview, when they decide whether they want to move on to the next step of the process or they just want to reject you, isn't that risk and gambling as well? What happens after you go through all the interviews, get to the last stage of the interview process, and the last person decides that they hate your fucking face? And then they make the decision, because they're the skip, VP, high-ranking director, hiring manager's manager, whatever it is, that they don't want to move forward with you. So you just wasted all your time doing all those case studies, going for all those interviews, talking to people, doing your research, spending your gas and time going to the office for nothing. Is that not gambling as well? And then people are going to say, well, that's different because you need a job, right? Everyone needs a job because that's how they make money. How about the stock market, bro? How about full-time trading, where you don't have to have someone forcing you to be at a certain place for a certain time for most part of your day? The best part of your day, in fact, because that's usually when the sun is shining. So you go out in the morning before the sun comes out, spend the entire rest of your day at the office where everyone else is having fun outside, and then you leave once it gets dark. Is that not depressing? Is that not a way of life that you want to escape from? If it is, consider full-time trading, right? And then people are like, well, that's different. That's different. How is it different? How is applying for a whole bunch of jobs, spending all your time, potentially money as well, even more time as you move on to the different stages of different companies that you're interviewing with? Unless you're really, really lucky, it's not just going to be one company that you interview with, it's going to be multiple. So you multiply the amount of time and money across these different companies. Is that not gambling? Couldn't you have been working at McDonald's for $8 an hour, making guaranteed income? Why wouldn't you do that? Isn't the whole point of you discouraging full-time trading to avoid gambling? Don't go for job interviews. Go work at McDonald's. Go work a part-time job where the income is guaranteed if you're of that mindset. Now, we could probably argue this till the end of time, and we will do this, trust me, because there are different angles to this topic that I would like to cover in future videos. But we're just going to move on to 2 examples at this point, because I don't want this video to be overly long, of people that I actually know who have made it as full-time traders. The first person is none other than my uncle, who is in his 60s at this point and living in the high cost of living city of Singapore. He has not worked a single day of his life since he was 35, and he has a family, he has a wife, he has kids, he has a car, and he has a house. Not an apartment house, but a house. And those people who live in Singapore will know how much that matters, because buying an apartment is already expensive, but getting a house, that's something else. Although I will say that he got the house many eons ago, where it was much more within reach of the casual upper middle class person. These days you gotta be kissing a lot of ass or just laundering a lot of money in order to afford a proper house on a piece of land in Singapore. So this guy has not worked a single day since he was 35. He used to work in a law firm. Very well paying job, I would presume. So I don't know all the circumstances to his situation, because my family has this thing called privacy that we practice, and it's kind of awkward in conversation asking some of these questions sometimes, but I don't know the exact circumstances as to why he left the job back when he was 35 and how it is that he makes money. Now that's the point where a lot of people will say, well, he probably got his money from his family, or maybe his wife supports the family. Well, my aunt does have a good job and a good career, but I wouldn't say that it's that good of a career based on what I know, that she supports him, just lazing around at home full time. She wouldn't agree to that in the first place. So he has to have money from somewhere. And I will say that he does come from a decent family, so there might be some help over there. But in general, their kids are not very pampered, that generation of my uncles. Everyone's kind of made their living for themselves. It's not a kind of golden spoon that you get like an injection into your bank account. So he definitely has some life circumstances in his favor, but it is impossible, in my opinion, that his wife and or his family would allow him to just leave his job at 35 and not work a single day for the rest of his life, right? And I've stayed with this uncle before. I've kind of shadowed what he does in the day, because I'm just so curious as to what he does as a full-time house husband. He is a full-time house husband, so when he's not cooking, he's taking the kids to school and back from school. But for most part, he just spends his day playing his favorite sport. And what a life that is. And between those times where he's taking his kids back and forth from school, doing the laundry, cooking food, taking his wife back and forth from work, playing his favorite sport, what I see that he does is he frequently has his charts open for some kind of financial instruments. I'm not sure at this point what he trades. And again, it's not a question that I would ask. It's just not a normal practice in my family, at least. And I wouldn't go up to his screen, definitely. And like some people do who have no concept of privacy. I wouldn't go up to his screen and take a look at what he's doing over there, what he's trading. So I only can watch from a reasonable distance, so to speak. And he trades something. And that's what he's been doing since I was a kid. That's what he continues doing now. So that's my guess, that he's deriving some sort of income, at least, to sustain himself and his family, or help his wife out at least, from trading full time. And that full-time job really isn't a full-time job at all. Like I said, he's spending most of his day doing whatever the hell he wants. And I would say that he probably spends an hour or 2 hours each day, and maybe even more during the nighttime, checking charts. That's what he does. And a lot of people will hear this story and say, well, your uncle's just one example and he got lucky. How do you even know that he trades full time? There's so much missing information over here in what you said, that what you said about full-time trading may not even be his career. So enter the second example, where I do know a guy who, let's just say, shares a mutual acquaintance, and I know him on a decent level. I've paid attention to what he does. And he used to be an interior designer by trade, but what he's been doing in the last 5 to 10 years is he's been betting on esports as a full-time job, to the point where he's recently bought himself a nice German mid-sized SUV. And for those who don't know, vehicles in this part of the world, not just in Singapore, but in places like Thailand and Malaysia and Indonesia, they cost a lot more than what they would cost in the US. So a German mid-sized SUV in Southeast Asia would basically cost something like 1.2 to 1.5 times the amount that it would cost to buy in the US. He's bought himself this nice car, he's got a house, he's got a family, and he's never touched his original career for at least the past 5 years, based on what I know. He does do things on the side to kind of diversify his income streams, but I can say for certain that those streams of income are exactly that, diversification of streams. Those income streams are not the main way that he makes his money. How he derives his income is, like I said, primarily from betting on esports. And you might say, well, that's just betting, isn't it? Well, I would agree to a certain extent because I don't know much about esports betting. I do play video games, but not to the level where I completely understand what watching a game and betting on the outcome feels and looks and what the process is like. But I can say with very high levels of confidence that this guy isn't just throwing his money out there and saying, I bet this team is going to win and I hope that they win so I can get my whole bunch of money. This guy's played those video games that he bets on before to a very hardcore extent. On top of that, I'm pretty sure at this point, after so many years of doing it and making consistent gains throughout the years, that there is a method to this madness. So it is very comparable to how it is trading traditional financial instruments in the sense that there's risk involved, but I believe that those risks that he takes on his bets are more of calculated risks as opposed to YOLO kind of bets, you know? So at this point, a lot of people will hear this story and will move on to the next stage of cope, which is those are just two people. You can't just generalize that everyone can do trading full-time based off of two people. Those people are just incredibly lucky to have made their full-time income based off of gambling on the internet, you know? You should just get a full-time job, apply for higher ranking jobs if you want more income, and if you want extra income off of that, you should just buy and hold. Trading in the stock market is the best way to lose all your money and waste all your time and money. So that's why I'm just telling you this, bro. It's for your own good. I don't want you to lose all your money and waste all your time. Just do what I say. Stop listening to all of these small minorities that you come across. Well, if I would say that if those people were the small minorities, those people would be incredibly rare, don't you think? And you'll say, yeah, those people are incredibly rare. That's why it's not a full-time career option. Well, if those people are so rare, why do I have the privilege of knowing two of these people? And these are people who are not just fleeting, right? They are not just strangers out on the street, people that I meet on dates just once or twice and never see again. These are people that I actually know. So with that in mind, me knowing two people, and I believe everyone knows at least one person within their 2-degree radius, right, their network radius, who does this as a full-time job. And it's not something that's common, but it's also not something that is as rare as people think. And the other challenge with finding all these people is that they're not doing the things that you expect them to do based off scrolling your stupid phone going onto social media. They're not flexing in any way. They're not parading their nice cars, their nice houses, showing off their extravagant vacations. These two people, very low-key. They drive a mid-sized German automobile. So do a lot of people who work full-time jobs, right? They're not very different from you and I. They're not going out there to blaze their money at the club. They're not out there driving their Lambo. These people make comfortable livings. They pay for their house, pay for their family, pay for their car, live day to day. That's all they need. Not everyone has to be a multi-8-figure trader in order to be full-time or successful. And not every full-time trader who is successful is parading all of that shit around for people to see. Now, the second pointer that I have is from being born and raised for most part of my life in this lovely little third world shithole called Malaysia. So for those of you who don't know, cost of living in Malaysia, aside from eating out, is almost expensive as living in a Western country. I've experienced this sticker shock myself where I used to think, well, everything in the US is expensive until I actually went to the US and went back to Malaysia, and then I realized shit like the groceries, buying a car, buying a house sometimes in the city, living day to day, buying your things like your Apple MacBook, your computers. Those things cost almost as much as what they cost in the US, and people are making literally a quarter of the salary. So there's this rule of thumb that I created, and I found that to be pretty true, otherwise I wouldn't use it in the first place, is that to figure out how much someone is typically paid as an employee in Malaysia, all you have to do is look at how much the person in the same role is making in Singapore or the US, and then you just take the number, right? So if they're making 5,000 USD a month, 5,000 Singaporean dollars a month as an engineer, all you have to do is take that number, 5,000, and drop the currency and put Malaysian ringgit in front of it. So they make 5,000 Malaysian ringgit, which is based on when you look at the exchange, usually a quarter of what it is in the US. 5,000 Malaysian ringgit is equivalent to 1,000 to 1,500 US dollars a month. So you're literally paying the same prices for a lot of the shit, save for certain low quality grocery items and eating out, as what you would do in the US. But the number that you're making is a quarter of that after currency conversion has been factored into all those numbers. There's a lot of people that I know in Malaysia, including some of my old classmates, who are living lives where it appears that they don't even have to give a shit about money. The amount of money that they're spending is ridiculous. And this is coming from a person who was born and raised in an upper middle class family in Malaysia. And I've had this conversation with Malaysian friends who are also from upper middle class families as to how people nowadays are living even more extravagantly than us. You know who you are, Victoria, if you're watching this video. So what I mean by that is you could have a nice car, you could have a nice house, you could be spending money going abroad for vacations with your family once or even twice a year. You could be buying ridiculous luxury designer handbags and designer goods that cost thousands to tens of thousands of dollars. And you could spend a bunch of money on your kids as well, sending them to a nice private school or sending them to a bunch of sports classes for the latest hype sport, pickleball, after school, and learning piano at the same time. And you also got to send them for chess lessons as well, because that's an indicator of a future successful businessman. So you have all these options to spend your money on in your life. As an upper middle class person, now pick three. That's how the upper middle class used to work. So I'm not sure what kind of steroids these people's wallets are on nowadays that they're able to spend on all of these things. They're able to afford a nice luxury car. They're able to buy a large, expensive property that they live in, and additional property sometimes that they try to rent out to people, even though that's not such a smart idea in Malaysia because the rental yield is so damn low. And then they're spending tens of thousands of dollars bringing their girlfriend, boyfriend, wife, kids, husband, whatever, mother, father, on expensive vacations every single year, sometimes even twice a year in other countries. And then they're also buying designer handbags, designer belts, designer whatever it is, shit that you can spend tens of thousands of dollars on, but they don't realize that it gets made for a couple of $100 in a sweatshop in Italy. And yes, sweatshops in Italy do exist, in case you didn't know. And then they're spending all this money on the kids as well. Where are all these people getting their money from? Based on what I've observed from a lot of these people, whether that's people that I know personally or these people on the internet that I sometimes stumble upon, they're either doing one of two things. They're living way beyond their means and they're forehead deep in debt. Or they're doing something on the side that makes them a whole lot more money than what their employee life is making them. And that's how they're affording all of this shit, because it's simply not possible, even if you work in a nice company like IBM or ENY or KPMG, like some of these people do, the paycheck that those companies dispense in a country like Malaysia is simply not even enough to afford maybe 4 of these things that I just mentioned, let alone 5. And how do those people make money off on the side from their employee job? Well, one of those answers is probably being a full-time trader. Like I said, often people don't flex. They might show off their nice expensive watch or their car on the internet, but you could attain those things from other means as well. But certainly not from working hard as a full-time employee, unless you're that kind of A-grade superior ass kisser. Then more power to you, because I certainly cannot be that person. So I'm pretty sure there are people who trade on a very regular basis. I wouldn't call it a full-time job because I think that's just misleading. There's certain ways to trade where you don't have to be staring at the charts all day long and you can just leave, like my uncle who spends his time playing his sport and taking the kids to school. And that's your kind of answer over there, that it is possible for you to become a full-time trader as a career, but it's not easy, right? That's the whole misconception that people have, that, well, if it's that easy, well, why doesn't everyone do it? It does take 4 years to get your degree in whatever it is studies that you have, and go gamble away your time to go work for someone else for $50K a year, does it not? it does take you years of practice from a little kid, maybe all the way till high school or college, for you to get good at a sport that you may represent your school or your college at in, inter-school, interstate competitions, don't you? Unless you're born with that certain kind of genetics, which is very rare. Most people have to work for the success that they achieve. And I don't think that it's that different from becoming a full-time trader. And yeah, while I'm not profitable, nor am I making a full-time income from trading just yet, I like to believe that it is possible, which I guess a lot of people will also knock on me for, because they're going to be like, well, you're not full-time, you're not profitable yet. What gives you the right to talk about the subject in the first place? You're not even making any money. And that's the exact mindset that I've referred to in this video and also in previous videos, that a lot of people just don't try. They give up before they even try. And they'll tell themselves, well, everyone's just failing. No one else succeeds at full-time trading. In order for me to make money, I just gotta work myself up the career ladder. And whatever savings that I have, I just gotta invest in a house or buy and hold, because that's the way that money is made without risk. That's the kind of mindset that makes you a loser, because you're forever gonna be a wagey, working your ass off at the job that may or may not let you go the moment hard times arrive, or some guy in the investment board wakes up one day and feels like he wants to raise his profits to revenue ratio, and the easiest way to do it is not by raising sales, it's by cutting all those hits. If that's the life that you want to live, more power to you as well, because that's not the way that me and a whole lot of other people would like to live, as exemplified by the number of people who complain about their full-time job all the freaking time. Just look at your friends and family. Well, this is a long video. I'm going to end this here. We're going to cover more of this topic in the future, but I hope you learned something. See you all in the next videos. With an S, plural. Bye.